Neville Goddard is one of the most profound spiritual teachers of all time. His ideas about imagination, living in the end, and creating from the feeling of the wish fulfilled have inspired millions. But for most people, they are hard to actually apply. And that changes today because in this video, I'm going to walk you through Neville's 7 core teachings, not as philosophy, but as something you can actually use in real life. And this is in theory. I went from being a corporate lawyer, barely saving any money, to building my own companies, making 6 figures in my mid-20s, and then negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. And a big part of that shift actually came from applying these principles. Now, the first principle is imagination creates reality. Neville's first and most foundational teaching is that imagination is not something you just do for fun. It's the actual mechanism through which your life is being created right now, all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. He taught that there are 2 realities that exist at the same time. The first one is the physical world you can see and touch, like your bank account, your job, your relationships. And the second one is what he called the 4th dimension, which is like a field of pure potential where every version of your life already exists, like your dream relationship, your ideal career, the version of you who is healthy and free. All of that, it already exists there right now as a possibility waiting to be pulled into the physical form. And the bridge between these 2 worlds is imagination. What you consistently imagine and feel is what crosses over from potential into reality. And what most people don't realize is you're already imagining constantly. So when you're stuck in traffic, like you're running a conversation in your head about how unfair life is, that is imagination. Or when you're up at 3 a.m. playing a scenario that has not even happened yet, that is imagination. And when you're scrolling on social media and comparing yourself to people and thinking why you're left behind, that is also imagination. The problem is not that people don't know how to imagine. The problem is most people are using imagination unconsciously. And almost always when you're using it unconsciously, it's in the direction of what you don't want. Like people are rehearsing failure, or they're replaying pain and anticipating the worst outcomes. And then they're sitting and wondering why nothing changes. Neville is saying the same power that is currently recreating your struggles every day, if you just redirect it intentionally, will recreate your life in the direction of what you actually want. Now, the one thing to remember from this principle is you are always imagining. The only question is whether you're doing it for you or against you. Now, the second principle is the law of assumption. Neville taught that your life is not shaped by what you wish or what you work towards. It is shaped by what you assume to be true. An assumption, it's a belief so deep that you don't even question it anymore. It just feels like reality. And for most people, they have assumptions like money is hard to make, or good relationships don't last, or people like me don't get opportunities like that. And they're not facts. They are assumptions that have been accepted so fully that they've become self-fulfilling prophecies. And Neville says the way to change your life is to change your assumptions. Not by pretending or forcing positivity, but by genuinely adopting a new inner stance about who you are and what is possible for you. Let me give an example. Like, think about someone in your life who always seems to land on their feet. Like, opportunities come to them, people want to help them, things just basically seem to work out for them. And you might call that person lucky, but if you look closely, how they talk about themselves, or the way they walk into a room, or the way they respond when something goes wrong, there is always an underlying assumption operating, that is, things always work out for me, or I am someone people want to invest in. And now if you think about someone else in your life who's at the opposite end, they're talented, maybe even more talented, but nothing sticks for them. Every opportunity seems to slip away, relationships disappoint them. And again, if you look at the underlying assumption, not what they say they believe, but what they seem to expect at a deeper level, that expectation, that assumption is quietly directing everything. And Neville says you can change your assumption deliberately. You don't need to wait for evidence. You choose the new assumption first, and then the evidence follows. Now, the one thing to remember from this principle is your life is not a reflection of your circumstances, it's a reflection of your deepest assumptions about yourself. Now, the third principle is feeling is the secret. And Feeling is the Secret is actually the title of one of Neville's books. And what Neville is saying is that thought alone is not enough. Like, you can think about what you want all day, you can even journal it or even put it on a vision board. But if you don't feel it, if there is no emotional reality to it, it will not move. The subconscious mind, which is ultimately what governs your experience, it does not respond to words or intentions, it responds to feeling. And specifically, it responds to the feeling of something being real. Neville called this the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's not the desperate wanting of something or not hoping that it happens, but the settled, genuine feeling of it already being done. Most people think about what they want, but they feel their current circumstances. So for instance, they want financial freedom, but they feel financially stressed. They want a loving relationship, but they feel alone. They want confidence, but they feel inadequate. And because feeling is what subconscious acts on, they keep recreating what they feel, not what they think they want. Now think of it in your own life, like let's say you wake up one day and you just feel great. Like nothing new has happened, there's no particular reason for that, but you just feel great. And then things just seem to go well. Like maybe the right person calls, or the conversation you were nervous about just went very smoothly, or a door you were not even expecting opened up and new opportunities came into your life. That was not a coincidence. That was your emotional state attracting experiences that matched it. Neville is saying you can learn to generate that feeling on purpose before evidence shows up. And when you do, the evidence begins to follow. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you feel. And by the way, if this is making sense, I've put together a very similar breakdown on Joe Dispenza's work. The overlap between what he teaches and what Neville teaches is genuinely very interesting, because one approaches it from neuroscience, the other is approaching it from imagination and consciousness. I will add the link in the description down below. It's definitely worth checking out after this video. Now the fourth principle Neville says is SATS, state akin to sleep. It sounds more technical than it is, but state akin to sleep is simply the drowsy state you're in right before you fall asleep at night. You know, those few minutes where you're not quite awake, but you're not quite asleep as well. Neville said that this is the most powerful window for the day for planting a new reality in your subconscious, because in that state, your conscious mind, the critical, logical, doubtful part of your mind, it starts to quiet down. And when it does, suggestions and images, they can directly slip into your subconscious without being filtered out. He recommended using that window to imagine a scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled and to replay it on loop until you drift off. And if you think about what most people actually do in that half asleep state is, they're either replaying the stress of the day, or they're running through tomorrow's problems, or they're even having imaginary arguments, and then they wonder why they wake up already tired and anxious. They've spent the most receptive minutes of their day filling their subconscious with exactly what they don't want. Neville says to use that window very differently. You can pick one image, not a whole movie, just a single moment that implies things have worked out. Could be as simple as receiving like a congratulations message from someone you respect, or maybe you're being handed a key to your new house, or you're hearing someone say your name with pride. Make it simple, but make it feel real, and let yourself drift off of inside it. Because the scene does not need to be necessarily elaborate, it just needs to carry the feeling of it happened. Now the one thing to remember from this principle is, the last thing you feel before you fall asleep is a direct instruction to your subconscious. Use it wisely. Now the fifth principle is living in the end. And this is one of Neville's most famous lines and one of the most misunderstood ones. Because living in the end means mentally and emotionally inhabiting your desired outcome as if it has already happened now in the present, not once it manifests. He said that most people make the mistake of thinking from their current circumstances towards their goal while being constantly aware of the gap between where they are and where they want to be. That awareness of the gap is what keeps the gap alive. Instead, what Neville is teaching is you think from the end to live, feel and operate as if the outcome has already been secured. He had a quote which said, think from the end not of the end. And if you look at the difference in the quote, that difference is everything, because thinking of the end keeps it at a distance, and thinking from the end puts you inside of it. Now, this is not about pretending or faking it. Let me actually give you a very simple example of how it shows up in life. Let's say you have just received life-changing good news, or let's say someone has got their dream job, or their relationship just became official, or the doctor confirmed that they're healthy. Now, before anyone else in the world knows, something inside of that person has already shifted. Like they carry themselves differently, they speak differently, they make different choices, and it's not because the external world has changed, it's because internally something has settled. Now, Neville says that settled inner state is what you're aiming for. Not performing success, not forcing an act, but genuinely adopting the inner posture of someone for whom the thing has already been decided. And when you do that, and when you do that consistently, something very interesting happens. Because the outer circumstances, they begin to rearrange themselves through what Neville calls the bridge of incidences. Coincidences, opportunities, people showing up, not because you forced them, but because your inner state changed and reality responded. Now, the one thing to remember from this principle is to stop thinking about where you want to go and start living as if you're already there. Now, the sixth principle is revision. And revision is one of Neville's most practical and powerful techniques. The idea is very simple. It's to go back to a memory that hurt you or limited you or left a mark on you and reimagine it the way you wish it had happened. It's not to deny that memory, it's to change the emotional meaning it holds. Now, Neville understood something that now modern neuroscience has confirmed, that memory is not a fixed recording. Every time you recall a memory, it becomes slightly malleable, and you can change the emotional charge attached to it. So when you revise a memory in your imagination, your subconscious begins to respond to the revised version rather than the original wound. Now, most people carry old moments silently like this heavy weight, and this reminds me of a very dear friend of mine. I think she was 5 or 6 years old, and it was Mother's Day, so she made a card and she drew 2 figures on that, and she handed that card to her mother and said, "Mom, this is you and this is me." Her mother looked at the card and said, "No, this isn't you, this is your older sibling, my favorite child." 5 years old at that time, my friend heard one sentence, and from that moment she built her entire life around the assumption of being unwanted. Not consciously, she never decided to, but that memory became the lens through which she saw every relationship, every room she walked into, every time someone pulled away. And that is what unrevised memory does. It doesn't just stay in the past, it follows you into every present moment and quietly shapes what you believe is possible for you. Revision says, go back to that moment in your imagination, play it again, but this time the way you needed it to go. And then you sit inside that revised version and you let your body feel it as real. You're not pretending it did not happen, you're just changing what it means to you. And when the meaning changes, the grip it has over your present life, it begins to dissolve. Now, the one thing to remember from this principle is, the past does not define you, but your memory of it does. And you can rewire that. Now, the seventh principle is persistence and the mental diet. Now, this is the principle which determines whether any of the others actually work. And Neville called it persistence. It's like maintaining your new assumption even when your current reality is screaming the opposite. And the way to do that is through what he called a mental diet. Like consciously choosing and monitoring what you allow your mind to dwell on throughout the day. He was not talking about toxic positivity or refusing to acknowledge problems. He was talking about where you allow your attention to rest. Because what you give consistent attention to is what continues to grow. It doesn't matter whether you want it or not. And why this teaching matters so much and so many people give up too soon is because when you start changing your assumptions and imagining a different reality, life does not immediately reflect that change. For a period of time, the old reality keeps showing up because your current circumstances were created by your old thinking. And then there is a delay between the inner shift and the outer reflection. Think of it this way. Imagine, let's say, you're steering a ship and you've been steering that ship in one direction for years. You decide to change the course and the moment you turn the wheel, the ship does not instantly appear somewhere new. There is a lag. The old momentum carries it forward a little longer before the new direction takes place, and most people in that lag conclude that the changing of course did not work. So what they do is they turn the wheel back and they stay exactly where they were. And most people see that lag and they conclude that changing course did not work. So they turn the wheel back and they stay exactly where they were. And I know this feeling personally because there was a period in my life when I was building my company and I had already made the inner shift. Like I had changed the assumption, I was doing the work, but the outer reality had not caught up. Like deals were not just going through, money was tight, and every morning I was waking up to the same circumstances I was trying to move away from. The temptation for me at that time to conclude that none of this was real, or maybe I had just been fooling myself, was huge. And I almost went back to what felt safer and what felt more certain. But thankfully I didn't. And within a very short period after that, breakthroughs happened. And it's not because I forced the breakthroughs, but because I held the course long enough for the lag to close. Neville says you have to hold the new direction while the old scenery is passing, because your job is not to make it happen faster. Your job is to not abandon the new assumption just because the old reality has not caught up yet. Now, the one thing to remember from this principle is the old reality showing up is not proof that your new assumption is wrong. It's just the lag between who you were and who you are becoming. Now, these are Neville's 7 core teachings. If you also want to see how Joe Dispenza breaks down these principles, you can watch the video on the screen or in the description down below, and I'll see you there.